Hey, welcome back to the Secret Writers Showcase. In the showcase, we showcase writers who are living in Wigan or working in Wigan or travelling to Wigan to share their poems and stories and scripts. February, this is a special edition. It's the Secret Writers Casino Improv crossover. So Casino Improv are a group of creatives who are an improv troupe working out of the old courts and beyond in the outside world. And I thought I'd give them the opportunity to show what else they can do as writers. And I just think it's really interesting to hear their words. So the first writer we are sharing is called Alexi. Alexi was educated in Wigan lad, ended up at Alra, and I'm very proud to have his acquaintance. Here he is with a little bit of Greek myth.
Hello, I'm Alexi Papadopoulos. I'm an actor, improviser, and of course, a member of Casino Improv. I'm going to be sharing a poem with you folks today. It's based on the myth of Bellerophon. I looked at it and rewrote it from the perspective of the gadfly that famously sends him off of his Pegasus to a rocky fate. Who knows if he survived? Many different interpretations of the myth. That doesn't matter for this. So what I'm going to be sharing with you folks today is my poem titled I'm Going to Bite Your Pegasus's Ass. Enjoy. Bellerophon, I'm going to bite your ass. Don't be surprised, you should have seen this coming. Flying up Mount Olympus wasn't cunning. Oh, fret not, king, you won't really be bit. But Pegasus, then you'll fall when he's hit. I'm not sure how to start. My mate usually does this, but she was busy, so Zeus sent me, not Nemesis. I'm the gadfly, the anti-bad guy with a drive-by bite, causing outcry bullseye every Olympiad. Why? Oh, spite. We know about you, king of Lycia, son of Poseidon, slayer of Chimera. You look just like your grandpa Sisyphus. He taught you how to speak mellifluous, to cheat and whisper words superfluous, that you could talk your way up Olympus. Hubris is so funny, drives men insane. You don't perceive the privilege in your reign? You had power, family, more, of course. Also, your brother is a flying horse. Yet this is not enough for a fool. This is because of the people you hurt. Young Deliades you speared for sport, kind Iobates you deceived for years. Poor Stenobia, hers is the most heinous of your foul crimes. Imagine yourself as her, watching your attacker become king of your homeland. That this monster married your sister, and that he called you monster, saying you advanced on him, pulled on him, seduced him. Stenobia's soul floats now, washed clean in the Lethe. You besmirch her name, painting her as sinner, false testifier and seducer, forevermore her final portrait. Well, when the hero does something that's profane, it's simpler to say the woman's to blame. So, it comes to this, you lying bellend, your reckless ploy to remain relevant. You'll be dashed against the rocks far below. Maybe you'll survive and live, I don't know. But, as this rhyme, my gross king, do quite forecast. Buddy, it's time. I'm going to bite your ass.
Well done, Alexa, and what a fantastic costume. I love that. Okay, next up, we've got Becky. Becky's been travelling into Wigan to do some improv in our theatre and the Bailiff's Bar at the Old Courts. And she talks about being inspired by Tim Burton's book. It's amazing. I would recommend it as well. I can really hear that in this writing. It's a little bit of a quirky love poem.
Hello, I am Becky Webb. I am 1/6 of Casino Improv, and quite excited to be here actually, and a little bit nervous, but that's okay. So I've written a few poems. A while ago, I read Tim Burton's Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy and Tom Baker's The Boy Who Kicked Pigs, and I've always loved sort of the darker side of Roald Dahl, and it sort of inspired me to write little cautionary type tales for young people. And yeah, and they're just fun and slightly whimsical, but hopefully with a moral lesson that we'll all heed. No, but I'm going to share them with you now. So thank you for listening. So I will begin. This one is called Selfish. There once was a girl who liked her own way, and she strived to get it each and every day. Now there once was a boy who was the same as she, who would shout and scream, behaving monstrously. The day they both met, no one could predict the amount they would bicker and cause such conflict. It started off well, and all was calm. The boy liked the girl and laid on the charm. The girl at first felt incredibly flattered, because being adored is really what mattered. She laughed at his jokes and admired his physique, though the honeymoon phase only lasted some weeks. With both a desire to be number one, validation they craved, and they needed a ton. Not wanting to help the other one shine, they believed it would dull their very own pride. But validation from others is not such a steal. It creates the turns like on a hamster wheel. With their constant need for a compliment slice, imagine their surprise when they turned into mice. Regretting their ways as they scurry in their flat. Compliments no longer the issue, it's avoiding the cat. That's that one. So I will scroll up. Where am I? Oh, yes. This one is called Greed. There once was a boy who wanted it all. Give it me now, is what he would call. New toys on the shelf would instantly be bought. Father's credit card swiped, but no discipline taught. He'd lived like this way for as long as he could remember. Spoiled since birth 10 years ago in September. There grew inside him a terrible need. There's something, my friend, is known as greed. Now greed, I will tell you, can get out of hand. Nothing's enough anywhere in the land. You cannot control it. It takes over your mind. It stops you from sharing, from even being kind. Now the boy, it seemed, was overcome with greed, filling him up at an incredible speed. Want, want, want were the only words he would say, his parents treating him each and every day. Toys began to fill his entire bedroom. Hard to believe it could happen so soon. There he would sit, day upon day, Monday through Sunday, doing nothing but play. But not wanting to share, on his own he would stay, unaware his toys began to block his doorway. After a time, he began to realize his mountain of toys had trapped him inside, blocking the window and filling the ceiling. The boy soon had a sinking feeling. With no way to leave, the little boy was stuck. Some would say he was down on his luck. However, my friend, and please do take heed, this boy's downfall was all down to greed. And I would just leave you with a very, very famous one. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating her jam and bread. Along came a spider, who sat down beside her and decided to bite off her head. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful session, and maybe see you in the real times soon. Thank you. Bye.
Great job, Becky. Wonderful. I enjoyed that. Next up, we are going to Jacob. Jacob recently went viral with some poems, which is really exciting. And I like it because I remember, like, obviously Jacob's been doing the Something New show and doing the improv and getting to hear all the poets there. I like to think it's part of an influence on his development. So here is a poem by Jacob.
Hello, my name's Jacob Butler and I'm a member of Casino Improv and I'm an actor and a poet. For this I've written a poem called Robbed. It's a pretty new one, so forgive me, I haven't learnt it. I hope you enjoy. I woke up last night to an absolute fright as I suddenly noticed my living room light had been smashed. Now, it's not out of fashion for things to be smashing, but after the recent floods, it's been more splashing than smashing and crashing, I guess. Anyway, I digress. I lift my head up from my single bed setup, and I'm feeling quite grumpy, quite tired, quite fed up. But my panic, It very quickly gets bigger as I notice the outline of a silhouette figure in my doorway. Now, right now, I should sure say something to frighten them away. I could say that we're in a hotel and we don't allow guests, or I have a rabid dog with a particular hunger for silhouettes. But in the end, I say nothing, and he turns the light on. Now, what happened next I didn't see coming. As I looked to the door to contemplate running, he looked around my room and said, "I must confess, I didn't expect your room to be such a mess." Rude, I thought, as I looked around my room. Sure, it could do with a sweep and a broom. Those underpants, sure, they're getting quite old. And I'm going to address that pizza box mould. But this is my space. And I actually like wet towels sat sodden all over the place. He spoke again. "Now, I usually don't judge the people I rob, but you, my friend, you live like an absolute slob. It's kind of putting me off." "Oh, is my stuff not good enough?" "The stuff is fine, it's the general demeanour. Could you not have kept your room a bit cleaner? It's so horrible, I just can't believe it. I'm just going to quickly rob you and leave it." At this point, I was both offended and frightened as I noticed the robber man's eyes had just tightened. "Are you going to kill me?" I asked, quite bizarre. "Oh no, I'd never go that far. I'll just knock you out cold, and like traditions of old, I'll flee in my getaway car." So as this condescending con descended upon me, I gave no such scream. I just sat and thought, I wish I'd kept my room clean.
Super, Jacob, where poetry meets crime. Crime being a very popular genre for books and for TV series. You can make a lot of money writing crime. That's my tip to anyone watching, write crime. Okay, next up we have a piece of work for children by the lovely Jess. Jess works at the Old Courts and has many, many talents under her belt. Take it away, Jess.
Hello, I'm Jess O'Neill. I'm in Casino Improv. I predominantly write children's literature, and lately I've been writing quite a lot of very short commissioned bouts of nonsense, which I really enjoy. So I've been a bit indulgent, and I finished a piece that I started a very, very long time ago that is a little bit more rambly, and I've given myself a little bit more space to play with like inconsistent rhyming couplets and things like that. So I've just realized that this isn't a titled piece, so I'm just going to call it Badger and Bear. Badger the Badger looked at the ground and noticed that something was off. He couldn't quite fathom the terrible cold. Under his feet when out he did gruff. He pawed at the ice and he sneezed a cold sneeze, and bravely he marched across. He felt himself slide with unsettling speed, skidding to an indignified halt. Now, one must consider the confusion he felt when our badgery hero came to. Badgers aren't used to going so fast on a surface of transparent hue. But Badger, delighted, enjoyed the pursuit of picking up speed in the cold. About the cold ground he went round and round, till the day had completely dissolved. Bear was a bear who looked in despair at the flowering ground below. The tree trunk she clutched was sturdy enough to wait out her moment of woe. The tree she had climbed, it looked easy enough as she bravely made her way up. But now she was here, the way down unclear. It was now time for Bear to jump. Now one must consider the fear that she felt as Bear peered down below. She gave a great roar and released her two paws till she fell down as far as she'd go. The fall was quite quick, the flower beds thick, of daffodils, daisies, and more. Bear spent the day in a clumsy ballet of leaping from branches to floor. Badger the Badger trudged back from the waves, leaving badger prints in the sand. He made his way back to the basket he'd packed and the lovely lunch that he had planned. Bear was a bear who dug holes with care. Her best ones were done at the beach. With her bucket and spade, she wasn't afraid to dig as far as she could reach. Now one must consider what the beachgoers saw as the badger fell into the hole. Bear got a fright. She had misjudged the height. The whole thing must have seemed rather droll. Badger and Bear, they both spoke at once. "I'm sorry," they shouted together. But they both were fine. Out of the hole they then climbed, and shared a lunch in the glorious weather. Badger and Bear are a wonderful pair of friends of the very best kind. They walked paw in paw on the brown forest floor, leaving nothing but crunched leaves behind. They came to a stop and they watched a leaf drop of the crunchiest one of them all. After you, I insist, after you. And they shared the best leaf of the fall. Now, one must consider the warmth they both felt when Badger and Bear realized. Their companionship was so lovely because each day was a lovely wee surprise. Sometimes they skate and sometimes they climb, sometimes they dig a big hole. But throughout the seasons, for whatever reason, they had both found a mate for their soul. That's a badger and a bear being friends throughout the seasons.
Oh, super, Jess. Thank you for that. Next up, we have Pete Kennedy, a childhood friend of mine, another Wigan-educated, born and bred lad, with a little short story about something that starts quite dreamy, maybe gets a little bit annoying. Here we go, Peter.
Hi, my name is Pete Kennedy. I am a freelance artist, an improviser, video maker, sometime comedy puppet performer. But I also enjoy writing. A lot of my writing is limited to my comedy puppet shows, but I do also just enjoy writing for fun. I'm currently working on some things that I might like to get published at some possible future point, like my own comics and novels, but I'm going to read you a short story I wrote one time on a train ride through Yorkshire, inspired by the winter countryside. Crump. His foot lifted and placed itself ahead of the other, gently but squarely on the ground. Crump. The feet stayed apart, the space between them measuring in time more than distance, as he hesitated to lift his back foot or even shift the weight. But he knew he couldn't stay there much longer. He raised it, slowly, hesitantly. No noise. He needed the silence, depended on it, but he couldn't risk staying still. For a moment, a flicker of thought allowed him to weigh up which would be the lesser of two evils, noise or stillness. The moment wasn't long enough, and his own momentum forced his hand, or rather, his foot. Crump. It sank slowly into the soft white, the muffled sound the only telltale noise that he was there, the footprints the only evidence of his past. Another step. Crump. As preoccupied as his mind was with the situation of the moment he so desperately wished he wasn't in right now, that didn't stop it from still running needless, endless background operations, such as how beautiful everywhere looked like this, exactly what his footsteps sounded like, how he actually might truly love to spend a chill, crisp Sunday strolling under the bright, low afternoon winter sun, listening to his dull, enchanting footsteps. If right now he didn't seriously need absolute goddamn silence as he crept along another step. Crump. He paused, his silent, echoless surroundings hanging still as if the world was holding its breath. In all this silence he'd heard something other than his own footsteps, or thought he had. His neck snapping from left to right, looking for who knows what, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever could have made the noise he may not have heard. Hoping to explain what it was, hoping he hadn't heard it, hoping, praying it was nothing. No movement, no sound. The world breathed slowly again as he took another tentative step, wishing for an absence of sound, but knowing his wish can't be granted. Crump. If only the world had a mute button. He wouldn't be making that sound, that delicious, memorable sound, that damn dangerous sound that draws attention from the ears. He knows if he can hear it, then the wrong ears can hear it too. And still, while he worries and fears and ponders his plans, his brain throws up questions. What's the word for it? As he dreads the next steps he already knows he must take, it asks, what does it sound like? His heart in his mouth, leg raising, ready for the next footfall, it inquires, can you describe it? Can you name it? Crump. The answers come as quickly and undesired as the questions. Like biscuits crushed between blankets. Like celery bitten underneath pillows. Like bones ground between the teeth of a mattress. A soft, dampened crack, the dull crush as it compacts beneath the heel. There's no one word. It needs a word. A forgiving, suppressed, crumpled crunch. And just as the new word forms in his mind, giving it a real sound and weight, as if it had been a word all along, he heard it again. Crump. He had not moved. The sound made did not belong to him, or more specifically to his feet. It was the sound of a footstep, another's footstep. Somebody was following him through the snow.
And last but not least, our headliner, the wonderful Ian Hayles. Ian used to work at Wigan Pier Theatre Company, as well as like being an amazing actor in loads of things. And he can even make stuff. He can like make costumes, like sculptures and crocheting. And here he is sharing some of his abilities as an amazing writer.
Hello, I'm Ian. I'm a member of Casino Improv and I'm also a writer. I've written lots of different things. The thing I'm going to present to you is part of a set of monologues I wrote. I was going to make a podcast out of them, but then pandemic. So, you know, that's the short version of this story. But the idea of these monologues were if Alan Bennett had decided he wanted to write something a bit more like The Twilight Zone when he was writing Talking Heads. So some of them are horrible and horrific, some are whimsical, some are downright stupid. This one, I'm going to just do a little extract from this because they're all a bit, you know, they're all a bit. But this is called the In the Room. So there's a word there that nobody will say, the In the Room. And this is the first part of it. The character is called George, and as it's a radio play, I don't have to tell you too much about it, but imagine, if you can, behind there's a sort of a quiet drawing room sound, probably a clock, possibly a fire. There were footprints in the butter this morning. Footprints. Not human though, like, you know, little indentations, round, like the pattern you'd make if you poked your finger repeatedly in the top of butter. But definitely footprints, all in a little line. Not what you expect in Cantilever Street at all. Cantilever Street, and indeed Poon itself, are very much up-and-coming areas. When I moved in, I read 7.5 on the social scale, and it only dropped to 0.4 in the days after, which, as I said, was only to be expected. The social machinery needs time to recalibrate, to adjust to the extra physical weight. It's no reflection on us, but my wife, Felicity, simply muttered, well, if some of us hadn't originated in downtown. She said it like that as well. Downtown. No need. It was when I was regarding the footprints that Felicity actually entered the drawing room. That's what she calls the front room of the house. Says that those who call it anything other of a much lower standing. What are you staring at, George? She said. Footprints, I said. She gave a little snorting laugh, picked up the butter knife and took a generous swipe, obliterating the indentations entirely. Ridiculous, she said. and spread the whole lot onto a piece of toast. It sat there, thickly. "We need a gardener, George." "But my dear, we only have a small patch of land." "A bare and sparse patch that needs to be tended," she countered. "Now, we are by no means poor, but I saw no need for bringing on staff. Perhaps I could pluck the odd weed and till the soil myself," I suggested. "It could be a hobby." Again, the snorting laugh. "You? Oh, no, George. You're not built for it. It's heavy, sweaty work. And besides, whoever heard of a gentleman hoeing in the front street? In Poon? No, it just won't do. We need a gardener. And, by chance, Mrs. Concolas might have some time to fit me in. I mean, us in. His name's Pedro." When Felicity said the name Pedro, I swear she almost purred. It's not as if Mrs. Concola's little patch of land is exactly the floating gardens of Gemini, but Felicity just kept on at how lush and expertly groomed it was. Oh, Pedro. I was about to put my foot down with a firm hand when luckily I caught that Felicity was pouting, and not the alluring pout of old, but the one that was threatening to sour into a scowl. So I agreed. We'll give the poor chap a few weeks' trial. Almost on cue, the social scale indicator rose to 0.2. Oh! Felicity and I grabbed onto the breakfast things to save them from falling as the whole house gave a groan, a shudder, and a rising lurch. When the mood subsided, I glanced out of the window and could see, we were a little higher. "Look!" I remarked. "We've come up in the world," no doubt prompted by my decision to get a gardener. "We shall have to put another step in the front of the house at this rate." Why, I swear I can see the cock on the spire of St. Asprance behind the factory. "Yes, I do like seeing the old cock of a morning," Felicity said and snorted, although couldn't see what there was to be amused about. "So that's settled. I'll get onto it right away," she said. "Isn't it time you were off to work?" I mean, I agreed, even though it was a bit early, to be fair. But I could always use the extra hour and a half to get some headway on the accounting system that Mr. Meekley's just brought in. I felt it had been a successful morning with my lovely wife, and in all other circumstances I should have been feeling on top of the world. But as I stood to leave the table, I saw another little line of indentations running across the butter. Indentations that filled me with unaccountable dread. It was another little line of footprints. And that's scene one of the In the Room. Thank you for listening. I'll probably put out the whole thing at some point, and that would be nice. But thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you so much, Casino Improv, for sharing your writing skills. In this borough and beyond, we are so lucky to have people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, writing and creating stuff. It's pretty cool. So next month, see you in March with some more secret writers from across the community. If you've got a poem or a story and you want it, film yourself, send it in. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed watching the Old Courts live and you'd like to make a donation to support the work we do, please head over to www.theoldcourts.com/donate. This year's been incredibly difficult for most arts organisations, and we're no different. But with a huge effort and support from you and from our funders, we've managed to secure our organisation and the jobs of every staff member. We've also provided 343 artists with paid work for the Old Courts live. And our volunteers have delivered over 700 food parcels and made 600 calls to isolated local residents. But the battle isn't over yet. We're currently closed to the public with zero income, and we don't know how long this closure is going to last. If you can help by making a donation, then you're helping to secure your arts centre. We're hoping to be around for a long, long time.